Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 14, want to present to you all entitled by Islamic Public Policy. Our group is for the first.
Nelva Kablina.
And the second, myself, is Nurban Yanazaki. And this is our contents. You can see there is abstract, and at the last is the role of state Islamic perspective.
Abstract, one of the most important reasons for the vision of the Islamic science remaining unfulfilled is that little attention has been paid to the important role of knowledge in establishing academic disciplines. As a result, unlike other fields of Islamic social science, Islamic economics remains embedded in the epistemological ontological foundation of microeconomics and Keynesian macroeconomics. This is the main weakness faced by Islamic economics. It highlights the importance of the relationship between knowledge, science, and Islamic economics. Only after this relationship is understood and appreciated will it be meaningful to articulate Islamic economics. This is essential if Islamic economics and Muslim social scientists aspire to realize the goals of Islam and avoid the trap of their Western counterparts. They must chart a new and fresh way forward for their knowledge, consistent with a world view based on authentic Islamic sources.
Okay, for A, Islamic public policy. Public policy is an independent discipline for both law and politics. This public policy in Islam is introduced here and qualitatively different enterprise from both fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, and siyasah Sharia-oriented politics. Public policy has a significant impact on the quality of life of individuals and communities. The revelation can offer invaluable guidance for a courses of action that public authorities can take to address a problem or take advantage of an opportunity, whether for the population at large, a specific group, or a privileged social class.
B. Economic Islamicity. Basic principle: Islam is a religion based on rules. The goals of Islam for society are the welfare of all its members and socio-economic justice. All members of Islamic society should be given equal opportunities to advance. In other words, a level playing field, including access to natural resources provided by God for those without work and for those unable to work. Society must meet the minimum needs for a life with dignity, shelter, food, health care, and education. The rights of future generation must be defended. Islam thus advocates an environment in which behavior is shaped to support the goals of Islamic society, social welfare, and socio-economic justice, with the aim of making mankind one, affirming the oneness of Allah's creation, with the unity of creation as the global. The Quran advocates risk sharing as financial basis for increasing trust.
Okay, C, economic and social welfare. Welfare economics is the study of how the allocation research and good affects social welfare. This relates directly for the study of economic efficiency and income distribution, as well as how these two factors affect the overall well-being of people in the economy. The Quran and Sunnah provide normative and ethical guidelines on how to develop a just economic order. Islam clearly demands the basic needs be met, that equality is achieved, and that consumable resource be used to benefit present and future generation equitably. Government in oil exporting countries may have devised mechanisms to meet the basic needs of some their population. Such policies cannot be said to be fully Islamic for a number of reasons. Perhaps most importantly, arbitrary power comes at enormous social and political cost. The combination of universal ill-targeted and regressive subsidies, as well as high spending and poor quality of service, result in an inefficient and wasteful system. Finally, the existing institutional characteristics of the Islamic economic system, such as zakat, are not well managed. Many throughout the Muslim world have lost faith in the ability of this institution to overcome poverty and distribute income equitably to build the just society as required by Islam.
The economic state of affairs in OIC countries. OIC, or Organization of Islamic Cooperation, public policy in the Islamic economic system. All public policies shape economic development in a community. The direct policies need to support development in the Islamic economic system are those that are targeted to achieving the Islamic vision, which consists of these areas. One, freedom for all members of society to pursue their economic interests, economic justice for humans of all generations while preserving the interests of all living creatures, equal opportunity, education, healthcare, and equality before the law to succeed, provision of good jobs for all who can and want to work, personal property rights and sanctity of contracts, equitable distribution of income and wealth, poverty eradication, basic need fulfillment of food, shelter, and clothing when private alms giving is insufficient, management of natural and depletable resource to benefit all members of current and future generation, abolition of corrupt practice, supportive financial system that exclude debt and interest, minimum level of public debt, of course not tied to interest.
Dimension of economic and social achievements in Muslim countries. Overall, 30 years trends in human development for OIC countries compared to other regional groups and countries. It is clear that over that long term, OIC countries have consistently underperformed the world average in broad-based economic and social development. What stands out from the figures is that the OIC countries as a group consistently outperform many other groupings of nations. Women's empowerment and gender equality are the keys of achieving healthy and sustainable economic and social development. They not only promote economic efficiency, but as the World Bank notes, assist in promoting other types of development by removing barriers that prevent women from having equal access with men to human resource, right, and economic opportunities. Giving women access to equal opportunities enables them to emerge as social and economic actors, influencing and shaping more inclusive policies. Improving the status of women also leads to more investment in the education, health, and overall well-being of their children.
Islamic economic ethic perspective economic development in the time of coronavirus disease or COVID-19. The spread of the coronavirus disease has not shown a decline. The coronavirus pandemic has a negative impact on all aspects of people's lives, such as health, social, politics, education, to the economy and tourism sector. However, the economic sector is a sector that is significantly affected. The condition of fear, uncertainty, and greed, self-interest, and unethical behavior of most individuals who prevail over the collective interests of society in the midst of a pandemic have been commonly observed in the examples above. Although cooperative choice may ultimately lead to better outcomes for everyone, the negative impact on the economic sector is seen in the decline in demand and supply of goods and services in the market. The decline in household consumption or demand side pushed real GDP down in all scenarios of national economic growth.
Hakim stated state that the purpose of the ethical principle of Islamic economics is to solve problems that occur, especially in case of gaps in meeting material and non-material needs. Islamic economics ethics in economic development during the coronavirus pandemic can at least be divided into two divisions of action, namely the application of Islamic economic ethics to individual and Islamic economic ethics to government. At the individual level, there are four ethical actions that can be taken, namely the need to consume halal and toyib food, change consumption patterns only to meet needs, not desires, avoid panic or excessive purchase, increases gift, behavior of social activities to help others, institutions or government in an active effort to manage the spread of coronavirus disease by avoid an excessive buying, consume the halal and Thai food, increase alms giving activities, and also the enforcement of fiscal and monetary policy.
Reviving the Islamic economic system through Sharia-based public policy. Islamic individual and Islamic economic system. The elaboration of the Islamic economic system depends on how each individual works to project the characteristic of the system, conception of economic ideas, practice, policy, and institution on how the Islamic economic order should be. Second, Muslim society and Islamic economic system. Muslim society is economic behavior. In reality, the community directly takes economic action that are realized through buying, selling, financing, and other productive efforts.
Islamic individual and Islamic public policy, ensuring each individual that he or she has the resilience to resist desires will effectively stop the individual from having multiple and insatiable needs. Subsequent consumption, production, and distribution decisions, recognizing the spirit of moral economy, the need for broad-based public policy. This policy must be formulated with the sole aim of transforming, facilitating, monitoring, and motivating Muslims who profess to be Muslim in Islamic countries continuously to become Islamic individual without using coercive means. Carefully crafted public policies are bound to flow down from state institutions to the private sector and the common people. Since the formulation of public policy is in the interest of the whole nation, policy makers in the Muslim-led countries must find inspiration from the draft constitution and laws that apply in the country.
International economics in Islamic framework. The topic is international economic relations and order in Islamic perspective. There are even ancient economics famous for their works dealing with development of the Muslim trade and especially with that is known as transfer or hawala in Arabic. If you are familiar with international trade, you will realize how convenient the hawala system was at that time because Islam emphasized free trade and reciprocity between human beings regardless of country developed in such a way. When Ibn Khaldun developed his theory of international trade, he talked about how the difference in price between countries is related to the factor of availability. The main ideas and innovation that Ibn Khaldun spoke of came from his observation of the material world because of the widespread development of trade in the Arab and Muslim world. Ibn Khaldun was able to develop his idea to a parallel level of theory.
2. Islamic economics and finance from a European perspective. Public-private partnership, Islamic finance in international project finance. Project finance transactions from conventional and Islamic perspective are very different in corporate financial transactions. Despite the scale and allocation of risk, these transactions are usually off-balance sheet transactions, that is with limited resources or are asset or liability accounts that are effectively asset or liabilities of the company, but do not occur of the company's balance sheet. Many of these transactions are legal, but are the result of manipulating numbers and hiding debt obligations. This is the basic difference between the two. It will be helpful to differentiate the types of project available and map the different types of Islamic instrument available for the types of project. One example is public-private partnership, for example. They are usually financed under a conventional plus Islamic structure, where equity will be contributed by Muslim investors, while the debt will be in the form of conventional bank loans. Thus, will be two sorts of capital. Alternatively, there is a concept in Sharia called wakalah, which allows the appointment of agents to carry out transaction of behalf of others in exchange for a fee. The use of such agents to make investment create a kind of mix, something of equity and debt that can be used to manage some of these problems. Common law countries such as the UK and the US make Sharia financing much easier due to the ability to spread title ownership from proceeds ownership. Beneficial ownership is not fictitious. It is real ownership. However, the ownership is not the of the asset, but of the exploitation of the asset.
H. Development of Zakah and Zakah coverage in monotheistic faiths. Meaning and objective of Zakah and the Zakah entire a group of people. The literary meaning of Zakah has a twofold meaning. First, it means purity and cleanness. The payment of Zakah purifies and cleans the wealth and the heart of the person who pays Zakah. It cleans the dirt of wealth as well as the heart of the Zakah payer. By removing the stain, Zakah purifies the heart of the Zakah payer and prepares him to sacrifice for the cause of Allah. Second, meaning of zakah is fertility or growth. The payment of zakah is designed to enable the poor to grow in wealth and spirit.
The establishment of zakah payment has several objectives, including the following: to eradicate poverty and maintain socio-economic justice, safeguard wealth from the jealousy and of the others, the poor in particular, purify one's will and remove one's strengths, and remain thankful to God for His bounty to him. The divine book, Al-Quran, is also quite specific with regard to who is worthy to be the recipient of zakah and leaves little ambiguity of this issue. According to Quran, there are 8 categories of people entitled to receive zakah proceeds. Zakah proceeds should be distributed to none but the following. The first, beggar, or we say fukara. The second is poor, miskin. Third, zakah collector or officers, a million. Fourth, a Muslim who recently converted into Islam, or mu'alafa. Fifth, emancipated slave, or the sixth, debtors, or gorimin. Seventh, Allah's cause, or fisabilillah. And the last is wayfarers, or ibnu al-sabir.
Historical development of zakah and coverage in religion. Historical development of zakah and coverage in religion. Zakah, a contribution from the wealth of the rich of the poor. The poor is neither a new or nor an unknown concept to mankind. It is a continuation of celestial order which has been in existence since time immemorial. The virtue of the obligatory contribution from wealth was proclaimed and instructed by God thousands of years before the birth of Islam took his messengers, Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, and our Prophet Muhammad. In the Quran clearly testifies that earliest prophets, long before the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, were enjoined to pray and pay zakah. Charity and benevolence have played an important role in all religions. Most of this practice continue largely as originally outlined until after the end of the Republic of Islam, when the collection and distribution of zakah was eliminated as a state function and instead transferred to the discretion of the individual to pay the zakah directly to those in need. The administration and process for distribution of zakah in contemporary Muslim states varies depending on the school of Islamic thought most prevalent in that society and the level of theoretic involvement of the government in the societies. Current zakah policy in the Muslim world in modern Islam, there are four major schools of thought, each of which has its own view on zakah policy.
Islamic World's development policy responds to the challenge of financial globalization. The first, the nature and working mechanism of financial globalization. Discourse on financial globalization since the 18th century on the nature and effects of trade and financial globalization, which laid the foundation of modern economics. Financial globalization refers to the rapid integration in terms of developing financial relationship and financial flows of all countries of the world in the global financial system. The set of prerequisites for the international financial integration includes regular currency regulation, a well-defined exchange rate policy, an effective banking and payment system, and a well-functioning foreign exchange market.
Two, instrumental of financial globalization. The set of instruments of globalization includes conventional instruments as well as the new instruments. The nature of aforementioned types of instruments is being revised below. First, the conventional instrument of financial globalization. The conventional instruments based on the concept of the official development assistance include bilateral, multilateral OEDA, and the Millennium Declaration Commentary Consensus. Second, official development assistance, or OEDA, also called concessional foreign aid, including technical cooperation, as well as the development grant or loans offered at concessional terms by the official agencies, but excluding military assistance. Third, implication of the financial globalization for the Islamic world and the Islamic development policy response. This section of the paper especially focused on the implication of the financial globalization for the Islamic financial institution, while treating the institution of Islamic banking as the concrete proxy of the Islamic financial institution in the light of analysis. Wu points of Khan, Wu points to the imperative of an Islamic institutional response to the financial globalization. In the context of the Islamic financial institution, he explores the possibilities of their role as a lender of last resort for the Islamic community and for other private financial institutions, and the scope as well as the extent of suspending the normal standard of credit worthiness, existence of both the time and uncertainty rules out the possibilities of having a world complete market, as well as gives rise to the problems of missing markets, shocks, risks, and institutional response to the shock arising in the context of dynamic process of financial globalization.
The public expenditure Islamic perspective. The first in a conventional perspective. Until the 1930s, the dominant philosophy was laissez-faire, in which the government was advised not to interfere in the operation of the market. It is believed that rational individuals forcing private interest in competitive market will achieve both private and public interest at the same time. The invisible hand of market force will ensure symmetry between public and private interests and the best allocation of resources. Therefore, the government does not need to take any economic role to establish the rule of the game according to perfect competition. Government presence is acceptable only to eliminate chaos in the market or to compensate for market failure. After the Great Depression, this paradigm was challenged by Keynesian economics on the grounds that markets are generally characterized by imperfection and liquidity and therefore may not always guarantee full employment and the best allocation of resources. Market force left alone may not produce the income distribution that society wants. Partly because of rise unemployment and income inequality, and partly as a reaction to communist philosophy, the government began to take responsibility for supporting the old and the very young. The period that began in early 1940s and stretched into the 1970s was generally dominated by the philosophy of great governance around the world.
Second, in Islamic perspective, in Islamic economic literature, the role of the state has been a matter of debate. The importance of the state institution is never underestimated. This is seen as absolutely necessary to continue the mission of the Prophet, namely the attainment of maqasid al-Shariah. The difference from conventional economics is clear. The state is seen as capable of realizing maqasid al-Shariah, that is, in Islamic state, any allocation of resource that hinders the realization of maqasid should be considered inefficient. Likewise, the achievement of equity and justice is an important component of public policy. The authority possessed by the ruler has two aspects. First and foremost, they must exercise power according to Allah's rules. Second, the ruler is the agent of the society for the achievement of the goals that society sets for itself. Citizens can submit any task to the state through a deliberation process, even under the first role, achieving the general welfare of citizens in the contemporary context will require the state to take on some development function.
Next. Role of state in Islamic perspective. In Islam, there are two levels. In the first role, the state must implement the provisions of the Sharia. This involves two things. The first is to apply Sharia rule in a predetermined area, and the second, to enact new laws to regulate and guide the public in matters not regulated by Sharia. In making laws in such matters, the state will be guided by the spirit and purpose of Sharia. While the state cannot legalize what is clearly illegal in the Sharia or relieve individuals from the obligation that the Sharia clearly imposes on them. The state can always issue a new list of do's and don'ts to regulate the economic and guide it in the valued direction. In this, he enjoys the widest possible power, subject to the limitation that the decisions are taken after proper deliberation. In terms of the state economic function, it will oblige the state to carry out the function given by the Sharia permanently, such as da'wah, defense, law, and order, justice enforcement, etc. It will also authorize the state to perform the economic function which are necessary in the present circumstance to achieve the objective of the Sharia. This last category must emerge from a proper process of ijtihad. The state must serve the interests of the wider community and exercise the power conferred on it by the collective will. The state is obligated to carry out any function that the community has given it on condition that it does not violate Sharia principle. In conclusion, the scope of state function is very broad. The Islamic State is welfare state in the broadest sense, nothing that when the Quran speaks of falah or welfare, it always includes more emphasizing well-being in the afterlife. However, except for the very short term, the size of a government should be limited by its ability to generate sufficient resource. Continuous deficit for a long time should not be tolerated.
The conclusion. Based on the description above, there have been many development and change in Islamic public policy on how Muslims establish and establish disciplinary laws that have existed for a long time, such as developing a lot of knowledge to build legal law in the social life or religious people. This economic sector realizing economic Islamicity, economic for social welfare, economic states affairs on OIC countries. This business effort produce several laws that can be used in society. For example, such as the dimension of economic and social achievement in Muslim countries, Islamic economic ethic perspective on economic development in the time of coronavirus disease, development of zakah and zakah coverage in monotheistic faiths, all of which are forms of success in developing Islam public policies that are in accordance with the teaching of Sharia and benefit all Muslims. Just this from us. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Right.